What's up, everybody? Got another episode for you today. This one's going to be unique. You're going to like this one. So what do you do if you've been an engineer all your life? Well, if you're this guy, you decided to start building your own big boy toys. You're going to want to stick around to see this one. I'm John with Translines Inc., and this is OTR Survival.
Yeah, it's on. Let's go. If you are watching this show, that means you want to know how to become a professional. Oh, shit. Like me.
So, I want to give a little backstory here. I was actually on my way to the bank where I bank at, and I pull up and I see this guy's creation. Kind of lost my mind. I went all over looking to try to find him, and I couldn't find him originally. Go into the bank, do what I had to do. I come back out and I see the guy, so I start running up there. Kind of looked like he wasn't sure whether I was going to talk to him or try to kill him. But so at any rate, we got to talking, and I explained to him, hey, listen, I've got a YouTube channel that's going to absolutely love this truck. Could we set up an appointment sometime to do a video? And so he's like, yeah, I'm a rock star. Absolutely. We need to pull this off. Ain't that about right?
Oh, yeah.
He told me he was a rock star. I said, well, damn. I hadn't met one before. So,
yeah, an engineer, a rock star.
Yeah, well, you know, there's a lot of those, but you're the best. So that's all there is. So at any rate, flash forward about 3 months later, I finally was able to put together some time to make this video happen and give him a call, and he was ready to rock and roll. So I'm really excited to pull this one off. I'm sure you can kind of see a little bit of this creation behind us here. It's the most unique thing I've ever seen in my life. And my immediate first question was, in what dream did you wake up and go, I've got to build this?
Well, I knew when I retired that I wanted to do a project. And I knew it was going to be an automotive project. And I had a 65 Ford Econoline van back when I was in my 20s. Wow. And my dad actually had a Chevy van in my 20s. And back then, the engines were between the seats. And anyway, and that's what I wanted to do. And I love cab over engine trucks, COE trucks. I just love them. And so I thought, well, what I would try to do is build a 1965 Ford Econoline, build a more modern version of it. And the mid-90s, which is what this is based on, it's based on a 1995 GMC pickup truck, was a good time to pick because there's not a lot of electronics and sensors all over the place.
Sure.
And so, and I went with the GM because the front four-wheel drive, the front end has independent suspension. The differential is mounted on the frame. Ford had the twin I-beam suspension, which is kind of difficult to work with.
Sure.
So that's what got me started in this, and I wound up starting out with a 95 GMC Sierra, four-wheel drive, extended cab, short bed truck with a 5-speed manual and your typical 350 Chevy small block engine.
So take us through, like, okay, so you have this as an idea in your head. I mean, I'm assuming you drew out the blueprints and kind of.
I drew some pictures of what I would, try to make it look like, and then I bought the truck. I bought a 95 GMC. And I just started going at it. I started taking it apart.
All right, so how does that start? So you've got this truck in here, you disassemble it.
The most amazing thing about all of this is that I pretty much started on step 1 and went all the way through to step 6 million without having to backtrack. There's only a couple places I had to backtrack. So that's probably the most amazing thing about it. But I took everything apart, and I knew that I had to move the engine. I couldn't get an engine to fit between the seats. Even the modern 6-cylinders won't fit between the seats.
Sure.
So it had to be in back of the seats. So I don't know. So I went from there. So then I took everything apart. I moved the engine back 3 feet. It's like over the axle in a standard truck, and I moved it back 3 feet and to the right 1.5 inches. And in order to get a short wheelbase, I wanted as short a wheelbase as I could, and 118 inches is a standard cab short bed pickup truck. This ended up being 120 inches. So the wheelbase is 120 inches. But to get it short, I had to get rid of the live axle, the Hotchkiss rear axle in the back. So I bought another front end from a 96 Suburban four-wheel drive and just got the front end, cut the frame in half and got that axle out of that, brought it back here, cleaned it up, and cut my frame in half, got rid of the Hotchkiss and the rear axle and welded on Suburban, excuse me.
It's all good.
And then that set my wheelbase on there. So what this is two front ends welded together, so it's independent suspension, and it's torsion bar suspension, because they used torsion bars at that time. So I got these big two long bars in the front for the front end, and two long bars in the back for the rear end. And from there I had the engine moved back and to the side 1.5 inches, and then I could hook a drive shaft up from the transfer case to the rear differential. And I had a friend of mine, Joe, gave me a bunch of specific stuff that you have to do to make sure your universals won't wear out like crazy. He gave me a lot of tips along the way. And then I had to have a new drive shaft made for the front, because it's about 3 feet longer than the original one. And so that set the engine and the frame pretty much in all the drive shafts. Then the next thing, of course, was to move the cab forward. Because normally when you sit in the pickup, you sit between the axles and you sit kind of low.
Right.
Well, I moved it so you sit on top of that front axle, on top of the front wheel. Typical of just about every cab over truck out there, big or small. And to do that, I had to move the cab forward 5 feet and up about 6-7 inches. So that was a lot of this is kind of spooky for a guy. This is my first custom. This is, Joe came over one day and said, "Hey, you're building a custom." And it's like, I had never thought about that. It's like, duh. And but yeah, and it's like my first I've done a lot of other stuff, but never anything to this scale.
Right. Yeah.
And and then of course to do that, to move the cab forward and then cut the running boards out on either side, to get the wheels to go up into the cab, and to cut the back end of the cab out where the engine is going to go. I mean, you ruined the structure of the truck. So I built a new subframe at a 14 gauge 2x2s and welded it underneath, and then temporarily welded in bolted in a subframe inside the truck so that it wouldn't get all cattywampus when I had this flexi truck until I got it remounted. And one of the amazing things for me was after I got it all in, I figured the doors are going to be a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Everybody knows doors are a pain in the butt, and I'm sure to have screwed things up. Well, after I got all this, the body remounted and put the doors on and slammed them shut, and it's like, they were beautiful. I haven't touched them.
Wow.
It just amazed me. So I guess I have enough reinforcing in there to keep the cab from flexing.
That's incredible. How do you go about getting like this stuff? Because this wasn't something you pulled off of a vehicle.
No. Well, so then the other thing is, the pocketbook is always there. So
oh yeah.
You can't quite do everything you'd like to do. So you try to use as much of the original stuff as you can, and then a nice thing about that is it gives you a theme. And my theme was if GM wanted to build a cab-over pickup truck in the mid-90s and use a bunch of standard components they already had, then this is what they would do. They wouldn't make a whole bunch of new stuff. So that is a theme, gave me an excuse to reuse as much stuff as I could.
Oh yeah.
And so let's see. So after I got the cab mounted, well, the difficult parts were after I got the cab mounted. It's like, how do you do the steering on this thing? Because the steering box is on the left side ahead of the driver normally. Okay. Now you're sitting over the steering box. I mean, right on top of the steering box. So the shafts you have to get your shafts to come back because you can't use hydraulics on an over-the-road vehicle. So and the steering box had to be remounted the other way. So I found a right-hand drive U.S. mail truck steering box. on this side, and flipping it around to this side put the shaft forward. So I got that and bolted that about the same location, where I bolted it on the same location of the initial steering box, which enabled me to use the, I forget the name of all this stuff because I'm not so good. All the steering linkage is the same. It's all the same. So I didn't have to redo the geometry because, God, there are so many, with the tie rod ends and all that stuff, there's so much stuff in there to redo the geometry of.
Sure.
So fortunately, that box worked there. And then my only problem was I had to go down a little bit, up, and then back over to the steering column. And you'll see in the pictures what I did. I have 3 double universal joints to accomplish that. The column comes down, there's a double universal to go down, and then there's double universal to go back, and then there's double universal to come back to the steering box.
Good
that
grief.
was almost a showstopper. that was tough.
So you get all the motor part together, all right? Now you're trying to make this work on top of that, because like you've got to make this, like putting all this together.
I'm just following the seat. After I get the steering done, then I did the brakes. You know, normally you have your booster here and your brake master comes out here. Well, you just make a box with a little bit of linkage, and the booster is here and the master is here. So you just turn it 90 degrees. And Ford did that with Broncos. I think they cocked them at a 45-degree angle in the 60s. Now, probably other vehicles have done it too. But I just made my own box, and it's just get the brake lever to come out through a pivot, you know, that just pivots. And then, so it moves the rod this way so that you can have your brake booster and your master here instead of straight out. That was pretty easy to do. But I had to do that. I got the steering figured out, and I was I spent a long time thinking about that.
Sure.
And Joe gave me different ideas, pretty wild, I think, just to encourage me because I was a little bit down. That was a toughie. Anyhow, so I got the steering and the brakes, and then it's like, okay, you know, I want to reuse the radiator and stuff, and of course my frame was back too far.
Right.
So I got some 3x3 square tubing, and I extended the frame 3 feet, about 3 feet or so, and I remounted the radiator and the condenser, and then I figured out how to remount all the grill and all that stuff afterwards. And so there it was, remounted, but it's back 3 feet, or it's actually back 5 feet.
Wow.
Because the cab came forward 5 feet, so now, and plus the cab is up, 7 inches. So I'm back 5 feet and up 7 inches.
Wow.
And you'll see in the pictures what this looked like, because this is the upper fender, and it looks really, really horrible. And then after that, it was a matter of, we'll blend all this stuff together.
Right.
So it doesn't look horrible. And well, I knew that I was going to have to make a panel like this, and I made that out of, I think, 3/4 inch angle iron, and I slid it, like put a little slit in it every 1 inch so I could curve it.
Wow.
And the bottom one like that, and I had to put bars in, and I got 20 gauge and welded it on there, and it took forever to do that, and actually to make this little recess. For a guy like me that can't stamp sheet metal and stuff, it's just a ton of work.
Sure.
A ton of work. And then Garage Mahal that did the final paint for me. The guys at Garage Mahal, they're just great guys. Glenn and Jeremy and all those guys. They did the paint job, and they smoothed out my corners. They made this look a little better, and they cleaned up a few lines on it that just made it look like a new truck, make it look really good. Because it would have looked like an ocean, it'd been all wavy and crappy,
sure.
And a little bit. It was porky up here and looked kind of stupid. So they smoothed that out for me. Yeah, those Garage Mahal, great guys.
So is the interior just what you got out of the truck and just
Yeah, the interior is what I got out of the truck, and you could see on the dashboard it was cracked.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't want to buy a new dashboard, so I drilled little holes at the ends of the crack and put screws in them, and it keeps it from propagating. Because if you have that crack, it'll just keep propagating. But if you put a screw in or a hole in it, then it like relieves the stress, so it pretty much relieves it from cracking anymore.
Right.
And the screw just makes it look a little better.
Wow.
So the interior, so, you know, we can pop the hood in here too, but all this is off the truck. And of course, in doing that, I had to take, there's like 270 wires. And I extended them each about 6 feet, 270 wires. You know, you cut them. There's like 7 wiring harnesses on this thing. You cut them and you put in your splices and you extend them, and it was amazing that finally when I went to start it up, it actually started up. And it ran.
Well, I got to ask you, what's the possibility that we go for a ride in this thing?
Oh, sure.
Oh yeah.
It'd be great.
We got to do that. We'll be back. So there it is, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video. It was a long video, I know. It took a lot to get everything shot, but it was worth it. I really enjoyed it. Peter, thank you so much for allowing me to come out there, brother. And your place is gorgeous, and the shop is awesome. Really enjoyed the ride, and it was just a really great time. Listen, I put a very detailed description of everything that he did down there for you. He had sent it to me, so if you want to get more detailed, it's all down there for you. And also, I want to remind you, I'm on TikTok now, and my daughter has absolutely went over the moon with putting these videos together on there, and they're incredible. You're gonna want to check them out. They're awesome. So other than that, until next time, thank you so much for watching. Take some time to have fun, and we'll catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.